Good evening. I'm ANYA USHAKOVA. A few days ago, I recorded my last video talking about what are some of the ways we can really take control of our own lives right now in the midst of so much turmoil in the world that we're all experiencing. And as many of you know who've come to my channel many times, I'm filming from my home in Northern California, in the California wine country, and the fires have been raging. So I won't repeat that information, and I won't repeat and talk to us about all the things that are happening in the world globally, and particularly in the United States right now that are so worrisome. So I want to focus tonight briefly, really. It's not going to be a long video. I want to come on more frequently in the next few months and shorter videos, but really on very specific thoughts that I have to share with all of you, and thoughts that are that I have, that bolster me and that raise my own spirits. So here goes. Oh, this is a weighty one tonight. I want to talk about love. I want to talk about love in all of its manifestations, every facet of love, from familial love to love of your children, to romantic love, to long-term relationships with your husband, with your wife, to love of country, love of community, all the manifestations, the faces of love. This is a really big subject, right? And we use the word so freely, and I don't think we stop often enough to understand what it really means, in the highest way, and the deeply most spiritual way, in the way that has the adjective attached to the word unconditional love. What kind of love is unconditional love? And I really want to zero in tonight on unconditional love. I've lived a lifetime, it seems, studying the nature of love, being in love, loving, falling out of love, using this word in all those ways and many more, as many of us have done, if not all of us, really, along the way. And I've come to the conclusion, I'm going to share it with you tonight, that there is only one kind of love. I'll go out on a limb. There's only one kind of love deserving of love, of the word love, and of our love, and of being loved. And that is unconditional love. Maya Angelou spoke of that. Many poets and deep thinkers over time have spoken of it. It's a very difficult thing to do, isn't it? It's easy to get into a disagreement, an argument, a point of view, and get righteous about it, whether it's in a personal, intimate relationship or on a more global scale. But after, a lifetime of being here on this earth, through having so many experiences about love, being loved by my parents, being loved by my siblings, and so on. Without unconditional love, our hold on one another is really tenuous, and it's very easy over many years, particularly in a long-term relationship, to differentiate ourselves so much and individuate so much that we become estranged. We become estranged. We forget what it was that drew us to one another, a long time ago. And we dig deep and we really try to rekindle that memory. What was it that drew me to him, to her? You know, all those beautiful words, all those vows the vows that we made to one another on our wedding day, you know, years later when it isn't working well, in those instances when it doesn't work well, we don't even talk about love. You know, we talk about obligation or burden, or we use other kinds of words. Those words have nothing to do with love. Let's take time right now in the midst of all the chaos in the world, in the midst of a lot of really difficult videos we're having to watch on television, on the news, on what we are doing to one another, how we're hurting one another. A place to begin, because we can't do anything about what's happening on the streets unless we're part of that street life and involved in some kind of pro or con action, acting out one way or another. But in our personal lives, those of us who aren't on the streets demonstrating in angry ways or feeling very righteous about our point of view, those of us who are just living everyday lives, you know, taking care of what we need to take care of, our work, our families, our lives. Take some time to think about what the word love means to you. Are you giving enough love to those people who you feel closest to, you say you love? Are you showing that love? Are you receiving the love that you really want to receive? Or does it all just feel so humdrum or like some obligation over a long time that, you know, becomes a burden, and you act that out in your own home and within your own relationships? Think about it. On a very personal level at this time, we really need to take a look at that word, love. Breathe it in, breathe it out. And if we can't be in the most intimate of our relationships in life, the ones that matter most of all, beyond everything else, beyond job, beyond country, beyond community, the ones that when we take our last breath are by our side, you know, and have always been by our side. If you're not experiencing unconditional love from the one you love most, I ask you to look at that. Is that really enough for you? It isn't for me. It is not for me. We are all deserving of unconditional love, receiving it from those we feel the closest to and say we love. And we must also give that to the other. Love begins with ourselves. You know, what do we think of ourselves? Do we think enough of ourselves to deserve being loved? Do we think enough of the other to deserve loving him or her? Think about this. When you really have your own handle on what love is in its truest form for you, you'll be able to widen your circle beyond your most intimate relationship and extend love in your outer circle, the outer perimeter of your life. You know, it starts within, what you think of yourself, how you love yourself, enough to ask for love in return by the one who says he loves you, and to give love that the other deserves. So in the midst of all this chaos right now, take some time to reflect on love right now, in this moment, in this time, and see where it takes you. Are you in relationships that no longer serve you or serve one another, each other? Take a look at that. Because 2020 is all about personal transformation within the realm of global transformation too. It's not just all happening out there. It's happening here within ourselves too. And that's where it begins, right? It begins right here in our hearts, in our very beingness. Think of the words you use, the facial expressions you give to people you say you love, your actions. Really do a life review with where you are on the subject of love. We'll talk some more next time. This is just a little food for thought. I'll talk about love more. It's a huge subject, of course. It's both complex and very, very simple. Unconditional love. That's what I'm enveloping myself in now from here forward. And if I can't give it or receive it, then I really need to take a look at what I'm doing in that relationship. Doesn't mean that there are any bad guys here. It just means maybe that's not where I need to be to grow into what the new world is going to be all about when we leave 2020 behind. So I send my love unconditionally, that love, to each one of you here watching this video or listening to it as a podcast. Be safe, be well. We'll talk soon. Good night.